Hello! I want to talk about how God tells us our future. Because yes, He does tell us our future. And that's only if we are willing to listen. Now, I have been seeing a lot of people, which has encouraged my faith and has actually really encouraged me through my walk as God gave me a vision of my husband 5 years prior to meeting him. And it's so funny because I only got very little words about my husband, and I was at Bible college at this time. But what's really awesome, well, my story is a little chaotic because this was me learning the voice of God at this time. And we can never really judge where someone is in their life because you don't know exactly where and what God is doing in that person, and especially at that time and in that place. And that is why patience is so crucial for this walk with Jesus, because again, we don't know what God is doing in each individual and in their lives. So if you don't got patience when it comes to Jesus, then you're missing out on a lot. Anyway, so as I'm in Bible college, God tells me so many things throughout the 4 years I was at Bible college. He told me I had to travel a ways to meet him. I then had a vision of his face, which was this darker skin, brown eyes, 5 o'clock shadow, dark curly hair. And that's not my type at all. My type is Caucasian, blue eyes, dark hair. Very shocking to me. But then it was kind of funny how God led me to the clues. God led me to knowing that his birthday was Christmas and that his name started with A and that he lived somewhere that started with A. So this is where I got kind of derailed in my faith a bit because I was understanding these visions in my own perception. I was trying to use reason and logic and human understanding to define what God had shown me, and it got me in trouble. It really did. But again, I cannot emphasize enough, because this has been my own personal experience. When people go through relationships, it's for a reason. And even if a certain person, when you tell someone that they're not supposed to be with that person, that individual is supposed to teach that person something. So this is what's really hard when it comes to people we love, and we see the signs, right? We see the red flags, but that person has a path that they have to learn certain lessons. And it's so hard to not like involve yourself into someone and be the rescuer and be the problem solver, but that is solely God's job. So I got into a really bad relationship, but if I never got into this relationship, I thought I had to move to Australia to meet my husband. That's where I thought my husband was. But little did I know, I was completely wrong. I actually had a friend in Bible college ask me this question: Becca, if God were to take away Australia, would you still serve him? And I honestly, genuinely said, no, I would not. And I cried because knowing what I said was heartbreaking to me, because I knew it was heartbreaking to God. But I think God was trying to show me something, which again, I did not perceive until everything unfolded. So I got into a very bad relationship. Well, this relationship I was in Washington State. This relationship happened in 2020, and well, Australia was the first country to be mandated to be vaccinated. And I knew then that that was not where I was supposed to go. Of all places, I ended up in mini Australia. Arizona of all places. Last place I ever thought I would ever be. Well, as I was driving down here with only $300 in my pocket and everything and everyone that I knew had just left my life and abandoned me, and I was here to make a fresh start with someone from school, but ended up burning that bridge. Well, my ex followed me out here. We were doing really well. And then we brought his brother down here. He started putting bruises on my body. Out of nowhere, it was him and his brother and against me. And I ended up working for a pot farm, of all places, called the Royal Choice. See, you cannot put God in a box. You cannot put God in a box. He will use the very things. Anyway, I get invited to go out to a pizza joint on September 22nd, 2021. And how I remember this is because it's the day after my mom's birthday. Again, God is very intentional with us. He is very intentional. Everything he will use to get your attention. Anyway, this guy sits down next to me, all excited, all cheerful. At this point, I'm done with men. I was raped at Bible college. I've just been a sex object to men. My ex was literally kicking me out on the street and putting bruises on me and cheating on me. I was done with people, really. I was done with everything, and I was ready to end it all. This man sits down next to me, all excited. And someone asked me when my birthday was. And, I've always been kind of curious why I've always had this birthday. But I'm born on Cinco de Mayo. And the guy sitting next to me, I was like, well, sarcastically, because he is of Latino ethnic. And I looked at him and I was like, when's your birthday? It turns out to be Christmas. You guys, I can't tell you what it's like to be filled with the Holy Spirit in a public setting where the people around you know the idea of God, but they don't know God. And to face my husband without him knowing, right? Like, it's so funny. What was going through my mind was my first pastor. I remember when I went off to Bible college, my pastor told me, Becca, if a man comes up to you and says, God told me that you're my wife, run. So I had this in the back of my head, right? Like 7 years prior to this moment, I had my pastor's voice in my head saying, don't you dare tell him. He's just going to run away from you. So I just, I was like, I'm just going to keep this to myself. You guys, I'm still waiting, but I know this is the season that he's returning because of just the confirmation I've had, hope deferred. Just this whole journey has been such a shaking and a revealing and a strengthening. It's just this whole process that God puts you on, waiting for someone. And I can't help it, but it this kind of process that God brings us through just brings me back to the book of Hosea in the Bible, where God asked the prophet Hosea to marry the prostitute Gomer and to always win her back, because she's so used to what she knows, right? Like, she goes back to the very thing she knows. But because of God's love, he's always going back to her. He's always waiting for her. He's always, And so it's just a beautiful... I'm actually quite astonished at who I have become in the last 3 years, because of this encounter. But if you have more questions, please let me know in the comments, because this has just been an extraordinary journey, and I can't wait to share everybody the testimony that's going to come into my life. But I wanted to share this and emphasize, don't box God and what he can do. Be blessed.